House panel proposes plan to loosen CCP grip on global critical mineral markets. The House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party is calling on the Trump administration to establish a federal, critical minerals czar, post, a strategic resources reserve, a critical minerals tax credit, and a national center for rare earths, to accelerate a mining and refining revival and build a domestic supply chain resilient to Chinese Communist Party market manipulation. Those proposals are among 13 recommendations the panel lays out in a 52-page report charting initiatives the nation must quickly implement to overcome China's dominance in producing metals and materials essential in manufacturing modern electronics, from iPhones to F-35 fighters. Expediting permitting, creating price floor benchmarks, subsidizing priority projects, boosting recycling programs, supporting innovation, and orchestrating production with trading partners were also among the recommendations executives with 3 key domestic mining and manufacturing ventures praised during a 2-hour November 19 committee hearing. The CCP views dominance over critical minerals as a matter of geopolitical strategy. Through a coordinated, decades-long effort, China systematically secured control over key mineral supply chains to shape global markets in their favor, Lithium America's president and CEO Jonathan Evans said. This is not merely an economic vulnerability. It poses a direct threat to national security. According to the report, China-based processors refine 85 to 90% of rare earth minerals, produce 90% of magnets, 80% of batteries, and control at least 75% of the global market for at least 30 of 54 commodities deemed essential to national security by the U.S. Geological Survey in its 2025 critical mineral list. U.S. manufacturers are 100% import reliant for 12, and more than 50% import reliant for 29, of those 54 commodities. Since April, the CCP has imposed export restrictions on 12 rare earths, 17 elements classified collectively on the USGS's list, including 5 in October. It suspended imposing the October restrictions for a year as part of trade negotiations with President Donald Trump. President Trump brought the United States and our allies a crucial one-year opportunity, Chair Representative John Molinar said. The task now before Congress, the executive branch, private industry, and our many allies and partners around the world, is to use this year and move quickly to disarm China's loaded gun before it can be fired again at the global economy. Trump issued Day 1 energy emergency and unleashing American energy executive orders to ensure a more secure, predictable, affordable supply of critical minerals, followed by a March executive order requiring federal agencies to streamline permitting. But Congress and industry must also respond, Representative Raja Krishnamurti said. It's time for a Manhattan Project-like effort to end our dependency on China, he said. We need to mine, refine, and train workers. So let this be our call to action right now. Federal investment needed. Lithium America's Evans, MP Materials Executive Vice President Matthew Slouscher, and Niren Magnetic CEO Jonathan Roundtree offered recommendations of their own on how to build a domestic supply chain impervious to CCP market manipulation. All endorsed Trump administration initiatives to allocate at least $1 billion in federal money to acquire stakes in mining and milling companies to provide financial security in advancing projects. Recent examples include the Department of Energy's 5% stake in Lithium America's and 5% share in its Nevada project, and 10% stake in Canada-based Trilogy Metals Alaska Mineral Development. And the Department of Defense's 15% stake, and $400 million stock purchase, in MP Materials. The government definitely needs to give a signal, Evans said. We need to be able to build things in this country again. Must be somewhat predictable and reasonable for financial investors to support projects like this and actually get a return. Federal subsidies for critical mineral development is no different than the space race in the 1960s, he said. If you look at the problems the Johnson administration had convincing the American public to keep funding the space race, it was difficult. But it spurred huge economic growth and leadership globally. We're in the same situation here. Such public-private partnerships ensure taxpayers share in the upside, Slouscher said, noting DoD's MP Materials investment has already generated approximately $700 million in unrealized gains for taxpayers. These investments demonstrate how public-private partnerships can deliver national security benefits while creating opportunities for taxpayers to share in the upside rather than simply absorbing risk and losses, he said. Representative Dusty Johnson said, as a free market Republican, public investment in private industry is not normally the first place my mind goes to what our government should do, but noted, maybe unusual times call for unusual tactics. This is a very important discussion to have, Sloucher said. Free market capitalism is the engine of our economy, no doubt about it. But I think the reality is today, we are not operating in a free market. China is both a monopoly and a non-market economy. At the speed of national security. Roundtree, whose Minneapolis-based Niren Magnetics is pioneering the world's first high-performance, rare earth-free permanent magnets, with iron and nitrogen, said the government should invest in, or provide low-interest loans for, innovators. He offered 5 concrete actions the administration and Congress must take, including federal procurement preferences for domestically manufactured magnets and qualifying alternative magnet technologies for Defense Production Act relaxed regulation. 3. Roundtree said, create tax incentives that level the playing field for domestic producers without picking winners among competing technologies. 4. Direct federal agencies to prioritize supply chain security over short-term cost savings. And 5. Provide import tariff exemptions for manufacturing equipment from allied trading partners. Representative Carlos Jimenez said tariffs could be tools in blunting China's supply chain stranglehold. Maybe what we should do is establish a kind of rolling tariffs on these materials, he said. So if somehow the Chinese suppress the price of a certain product, certain material, we would then raise the tariff on that material so it would always be kind of like equal with costs for domestic producers. Slashing permitting and regulatory requirements, capping litigation timelines, and aligning domestic production with allied trading partners were also among the initiatives the executives touted. Permitting does need to move more quickly and, ideally, at the speed of national security, Sloucher said. U.S. permitting timelines are very, very long, Evans said. If you're a private investor, you're going to look at market conditions and market growth potential, but you're also going to look at, when am I going to get my money back? Uncertainty around permitting timelines makes people go away. The United States doesn't have to take on China by itself, he said, noting many nations, especially Canada and Australia, share similar raw resource abundances and milling, smelting, and refining scarcities. We're all suffering the same issue, and I think it's all coming to roost, Evans said. All these countries somewhat sold our soul, allowed China to take the narrative here. It's hollowing out downstream industries. This is going to retard their growth because the Chinese can shut off whenever they want to.